In that moment, I knew that this was the sign that God was sending me, that you are not alone. You are not an orphan, you are my daughter. And that's what I knew, that God is real and that He is with me.
Hello, friend. Welcome to Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. I'm Ron Harris. On today's Mission Compass, we want to update you on what Galcom is doing around the world and also connect with a ministry partner who, like Galcom, is making waves. Where do you fit in the Great Commission? Well, keep listening. We may have an answer for you. And here's your host, Galcom's Tim Whitehead.
Well, thank you, Ron. We got a great show for you today. Before we get to Stan Jeter, Bonnie Sala, and our special guest, Brandt Whatley, a quick update of what's been going on here with Galcom. Friend of the program, friend of the ministry, volunteer extraordinaire, Ron Huinink joins us, fresh back from a trip to Canada's North. Ron, thanks for giving us some of your time.
Yeah, no, thank you, Tim. Excited to be here. I listen to the podcast all the time, and it's on my Spotify list to listen to an update every week, so it's good to be here.
Great plug. Thank you for doing that. Friends, if you ever miss a program, don't worry, visit our website or subscribe to us, Spotify, iTunes, whatever you like to listen to it, to hear what's going on with Galcom and how you can get involved in mission. So Ron, this actually fits both. You're a technician educationally, you're training to be a pilot, and you've given all of these gifts and abilities, skills, education to serve God by partnering with us, putting in radio stations. So tell us about your trip to Cat Lake.
So Dan Hatfield is leading the charge on that. He's been doing it for many, many years. I've been having many conversations with him over the years, and we've been trying to connect so I could join him on one of these trips. And finally, we were able to get this one organized. And we went to Cat Lake around December there, and we were able to put a temporary station in. It's temporary because they want to put a tower up and everything else at some point. But Dan had been working hard to get this station in ahead of the time. And flying in is obviously a big issue when you're flying to these areas, and you want to make sure you can get in. So we were trying to get in with the weather. So we were able to schedule it. We met up in Winnipeg, and we were able to fly out the next morning. Thank God, because it was touch and go there a little bit. The weather wasn't great, but it was good enough to go in. So we were able to get in and put in the temporary radio station so that they at least be operating over the winter as well. So we'll probably be going back there in the summer. At some point, somebody will be going back to do the permanent solution.
You mentioned flying in a lot of the First Nations territories that we're working with Dan Hatfield, his ministry, Nations One for Christ, and all of the radio stations are going in partnership with the Native Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, the NEFC, so in partnership with their churches and their church planners and their missionary pastors. These are isolated communities. What was the sense you got there when you landed and looked around and met some of the people? What's the dynamic there?
Regretfully, we didn't have a chance to do too much interaction with the people because we did get in late. We were hoping to come in the night before and we would have had a little bit more time to interact, but we flew in the morning. We landed. We had two local missionaries there meet us at the airport and bring us over to the church, and we dove right in, and no lunch and no breaks. We had to get going, but it was very exciting to see them. We had a number of people stop by as we were outside working, putting up the satellite dish, and there was a couple of the local people that stopped, and they were very excited to see us and gave us the thumbs up and let us know that they were excited to see the radio station going up. But yes, the communities are definitely isolated. When we were on top of the church building, you could look around and basically see from one end of the town to the other. There's no way out to get to these places other than to fly in. So it's very much reliant on, Dan with his airplane and flying into these places to be able to serve them with the radio. And that's where the satellite dishes come in as well, too, right? Because they are so isolated. They actually need the satellite feed for them to work properly. So we hooked up the satellite link, and then we were able to get the radio transmitter up and running and put the antenna on the side of the church building. And it was up and running when we left, and we could hear the programming. And it's nothing more exciting than to have the people come in, turn on the radios in their trucks, and hearing the radio transmission over the air. That's always the best part of the trip.
Stories have the power to save our life, not only eternally, but physically. Galcom International presents Stories of the Great Commission.
One woman was trying to commit suicide. The husband had run away from her, and family members were not supporting her. So she decided to commit suicide. And they stood on a chair to put the rope around her neck. Pre-tuned radio was on. This same pastor was preaching on the radio station. When she heard the message that was preached, that woman took away the rope from her neck and walked to the radio station. She was counseled. She's now a very strong Christian.
Discover why your story matters and how you can help fulfill the Great Commission right where you are. Learn more at galcom.org, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Galcom International. Make waves.
Well, it is time once again for Who Wants to be a Missionary, with our very good friend from the Global News Alliance, Stan Jeter. Stan, welcome back to the program.
Tim, it's always great to be with you. Thank you.
Well, before we get to the next tip on how to be a Christian media missionary using our cell phones, you've got another story to encourage us along in our faith. Just like one of our listeners listening that did this story. So where's our story from? What are we learning this week?
This is a really moving story. I was very touched by it. It shows how a small gift for a child in a far country can change a life. And so it's a story of a young girl in Ukraine whose father died. Her mother couldn't cope with the loss of her husband. She sort of went off the deep end. So the oldest daughter, who was only, I think, 5 or 6, tried to hold the family together. And now as an adult, Elizabeth recalls those traumatic days. Here's her story.
I kind of had to step up and be the head of the household at a very young age, 5 or 6 years old, taking care of my sister, looking after my grandparents, going from cottage to cottage and begging for food because I was too young to work at that time. I decided that Tanya and I would run away in search of a new life. We got on the bus and we left. We eventually got hungry, and so we started collecting empty bottles to trade those in for money and then use that money to buy food. And so as we were doing that, the clerk called the police. So that's when the police came by, picked us up, and first took us to the police station to question us. They decided to take us to a detention center. My mom was notified where we were. They asked her, they said, "Do you want your children?" And she said, "No, I don't want them." When my mother's rights were taken away, Tanya's biological father was notified. Sorry. I remember Tanya's father telling me, "I'm taking Tanya home with me, but I don't want you because you're not my daughter." All I could feel was heartbreak. But I knew that I had to let her go. After losing Tanya, I didn't think about the future. It didn't matter anymore. I just remember on that day feeling very abandoned. No one cared about me. After about a year at the detention center, I was transferred to an orphanage. Because I felt so empty, I started praying on my own. Without even knowing God, I was crying out to Him, asking Him to give me a sign that everything was going to be okay. There is a purpose for me. Every night I would pray. And that is when Operation Christmas Child came to our orphanage. This is the day that I received my Operation Christmas Child shoebox. Once I opened it, there were so many different things in there. But I remember my favorite item was a yellow yo-yo. To me, that yo-yo represented hope. It was an answer to my prayer. In that moment, I knew that this was the sign that God was sending me. That you are not alone. You are not an orphan, you are my daughter. And that's what I knew, that God is real and that He is with me.
It's a powerful story provided by Samaritan's Purse, and most people will know that Samaritan's Purse collects shoe boxes packed with gifts for children and distributes thousands and thousands of them around the world around Christmas time. And they do it with a portion of the gospel, especially made for children. So there's an evangelism, get to know God, who loves you very much, a message that goes with this. So the children's choir from Elizabeth's orphanage made a trip to the U.S. She was in the choir, and she met a couple in the state of Virginia who decided to adopt her.
Wow.
Now she's an adult. Over the years, Elizabeth led her adoptive family to pack shoeboxes because she loved Operation Shoebox so much. And they have packed over 8,000 Christmas shoeboxes to be delivered to needy children around the world since she was small. She's now gone through college, graduate school, and is totally an adult. But what a story. What a story. And that's one of the stories that we've shared, thanks to Samaritan's Purse, we've shared with our media affiliates on the Global News Alliance.
And so, friends, if you want to see the video version of that, go to gna.news, and you can see all of these other stories that are available, all these wonderful stories of what God is doing around the world. And you need to realize, yes, that one was made by Samaritan's Purse. They probably have some digital professionals there. But a lot of your stories, Stan, are coming from people like you or me or our listeners. Don't have to be professionals. So you've been giving us some tips. How do we record our own God stories, what God's doing around in our area?
First of all, the smartphone that you have in your hand or in your pocket or in your purse is a powerful video recording instrument. It's much more powerful, actually, better picture, better qualities than some of the video cameras I was using at the beginning of my career. So the one thing to remember, I think I mentioned this in a previous program, there are 3 basic shots that you want to get every time you go out and film a story. I want to expand that to 5 basic shots and do a quick review here. The 3 basics are wide, medium, and detail. WMD, back in the year, they call it weapons of mass destruction.
I remember this. As soon as you said the shots, I remembered weapons of mass destruction. Okay, keep going. What are the next 2?
So WMD, wide, medium, and detail. So you want to start with, you want to make sure wherever you are, you get a wide shot. So you show the context, then move in, get a closer shot of whatever's going on, and then move in real close and get some details of the important action. There are 2 more shots.
And I'd zoom with your feet. I remember that one too.
That's a good one. Absolutely. You keep moving in, but with your feet, not just with a lens. Mm-hmm. And so there are 2 more that are very, very useful as you build sequences. You want to think of sequences to tell the story, sequences of shots. So one is a point of view shot, where you assume the position of the person who's like a main character. What is the main character in the story seeing? You get sort of behind him, beside him, whatever, and you show, maybe it's a speaker talking to an audience. That's an easy one to visualize. So you get up where you can see what the speaker's seeing from the audience and you shoot that shot. That's a point of view shot. And then a reaction shot. And that is looking back at the speaker or back at the main person or the people affected by the activity, whatever it is. And are they smiling? Are they talking? Are they in shock? Those shots are good to put in the mix of your sequence of shots to make the story more complete. So if you're just standing in one place, trying to get a whole lot of material, you really miss the opportunity to make the story interesting. And so all of these shots, these 5 basic shots, wide, medium, detail, point of view, and reaction shot. And then you can throw in different angles like shoot from above and shoot from down low. All of those add interest to your story.
All right, I'm almost ready. I know what I want to film. I think with all the tips, I'm almost ready. Friends, gna.news for more. Let's all get our phones out. Let's use the tools God's given us to tell his story as missionaries. Stan, thanks once again for joining us here on the Mission Compass.
My pleasure, Tim.
Stories can influence, teach, and inspire us to tell our story of salvation to others. Galcom International presents Stories of the Great Commission.
Kind of a middle-aged woman, married with children and many extended family members. She and her husband were invited to listen to the station because they like music. And of course, she caught the message of the songs that we play. And then, out of curiosity, began listening for the teaching programs as well. Within a few months, she and her husband had both decided to make a commitment to Christ. People just began saying, there's something that's different about you, and we want to know why. They began telling people to tune in the radio station, and they began sharing their own story. And within the first year, they had led a large number of people in their extended family to the Lord.
Discover how your story can make a difference for eternity. Learn more at galcom.org, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Galcom International. Make waves.
Megan sat in the circle of women with her head in her hands. "What I've done is so bad that I can't ever forgive myself," she cried. She was miserable and felt she deserved to live this way. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. Megan's past was marked by addiction and abortions. When she first heard that Jesus offered forgiveness to her, she couldn't believe it extended to her. She's in good company. We've all made choices and done things that we regret, sometimes deeply and painfully. Guilt rushes in when we realize that there are some actions that can't be undone and words that can never be taken back. Consequences have to be lived with, but crippling guilt over the past is not God's way for us. Each of us has someone who goes between us and God, pleading our cases victoriously every time. The Message paraphrase of the Bible puts it like this: "Now that we know what we have, Jesus, this great high priest with ready access to God, let's not let it slip through our fingers. We don't have a priest who is out of touch with our reality. He's been through weakness and testing, experienced it all but the sin. So let's walk right up to him and get what he is so ready to give. Take the mercy, accept the help." No past can negate the mercy that God offers lovingly through Jesus, his Son. Ann Voskamp writes, "No situation is more hopeless than my Savior is graceful, and no personal choice that muddied my life can ever trump the divine choice to wash my life clean." You haven't messed up beyond God's grace. Jesus, your advocate, waits to wash you clean. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. To hear this again, read or share this, or to find more resources like this, visit guidelines.org.
Well, I am thrilled to have here on the Mission Compass a missionary who's just about to go out on the field, answering the call of the Great Commission. Brandt Whatley of Ethnos, Canada joins us. Brandt, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a bit of your story.
Yeah, Tim, it's great to be on here, and it's really an honor to have this voice and being able to challenge people and encourage people to take part in the Great Commission.
You've said it all. I was going to say all that just now. Yes, friends, that's what we're here for. We want to encourage you to get involved. I keep saying week after week, you're qualified. We just have to point you in the right direction. That's the Mission Compass. So the other week, I was just trading emails with a good friend in missions, Martin Lamb, who works with Ethnos. We've known each other for, maybe a couple decades now. And he says, you got to talk to Brandt. He's just stepping out. And so Brandt, first tell us, where are you planning to serve?
So we're planning to serve the Inuit in Arctic Canada. And this is a location that Ethnos as a mission has wanted to be a part of for many, many years. And so now we are, Lord willing, going to be the first team of 3 families who are heading up in May is our current goal. So that's coming up pretty soon.
I think it's a good idea to go up in May, too, to the Arctic. Kind of settle in and ease into the winter.
Don't want to be going in January for the first time.
Yeah. Now, you keep on saying we, and you said there's 3 different families. So tell us about your family.
I've been married for 6 years to my wife, Lainey, and we have 3 kids. Jackson, he's 4, Boaz is 2, and Rilla May just turned 1.
And so choosing to leave your home, your extended family kind of protective bubble where everybody's there to support you, to go up into the Arctic. What kind of conversations were you and Lainey having to make this decision? This sounds pretty severe.
Yeah, and we've been having these conversations before we were even dating because, I knew that this is where the Lord was leading me into missions. And so even before I was considering dating anyone, I was very open with, this is where the Lord is leading me. And if you want to join me in this, then that is great. But there's no point continuing a relationship if you're not interested in missions. And so carrying those conversations as well with her dad. And it was really cool just to see, any father seeing their daughter go to a different world, a different culture where there's so many unknowns and dangers is really hard. But at the end of the day, her dad just trusting the Lord with the life of his daughter and future family.
Now, 3 young kids, you're not that old yourself, but you're talking like before you were dating. So as a young man, as a teenager, you knew this was God's call in your life. What happened in your life? What kind of inputs, experiences did you have that made you realize at such a young age, God had called you into formal, vocational, cross-cultural missions?
Yeah, so I was really privileged with the opportunity to grow up as a missionary kid. So for 12 years in Indonesia. So I got to experience firsthand what missions was about. And we were in the Moy tribe in the deep jungles of Papua, Indonesia. So seeing these people's lives completely transformed from utter fear and darkness to hope and faith and light, and seeing the joy in their eyes for the first time, and that life transformation that the gospel brings, just as a young kid, knowing, wow, like what else is there in this life to be a part of something so great, so grand, and what God is doing to reach the nations.
Wow. I don't know if as a young teenager, I would have been able to articulate that and put aside my selfish ambitions. You know, every young kid, you want to be an astronaut, then you want to be a cowboy, then you want to be a professional athlete. Didn't you go through all of those things as well? Or was it always you just knew God's call in your life?
I knew I wanted to be a part of it. I was still naive as to know, like, this is why the church is here, to reach the nations. But I knew that this was something big and I wanted to be a part of it. I didn't know if the Lord had me to be one of the few who would go, or if I was going to be financially sending or praying for those people. So I did go through this journey, like through high school and through Bible school, of, is this something I really want to do? Because maybe as a missionary kid, it's just a big fun adventure, and it really was. But slowly growing older and see the realities and the difficult journey that was going to be ahead, like, do I really want to do this? And am I able to do this? And going through this journey of really just fear and uncertainty, like coming to the conclusion that there really is no way I can do this. I really am unqualified for this job, and coming to the conclusion that those are true facts and all of us are completely unqualified to do this job. And that is why the Lord said, I will build my church. And am I willing to submit to the Lord? And am I willing to trust God in this decision? Because it's his work and he's just inviting us to take part in what he is doing.
You should be hosting this show. This is what I've been telling our friends listening for so long. Yeah, we aren't qualified. We do need God's help. And that's why I love the Great Commission in Acts 1:8, where it says, when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, you know, and just this idea that it is God working through us and being able to submit to him and recognize that it's not a matter of our fitness, mentally, physically, academically. God just wants our availability. Now, you mentioned it was a big adventure for you. And I like to try to demystify the mission stuff. So tell us, as a young kid growing up in Papua, Indonesia, tell us the biggest, craziest adventure that, you know, people wouldn't believe you back home, that maybe the darkest moment too.
I think just in general, my favorite was just, we were in the tribe with our cousins. So we were just constantly roaming throughout the jungle, making forts and climbing the mountains, going down to the valley, swimming in the big rapids in the river, pulling big cassowaries that were in traps and carrying like these big cassowary legs on our shoulders down back to our camp. And it was a lot of fun. But you see so many experiences that people growing up in Canada, the US, or any like civilized world are so oblivious to these things that are still happening in our world. But on the flip side, it is hard. I think one of the hardest things, because we were constantly moving to different locations, so many different schools, and making so many new friends and having to say goodbye, I slowly began to build these walls where I would not let any new people into my life, because I knew the pain that was inevitably going to come, where I would have to say goodbye and I will probably never see you again. So those walls really started to get built, and it took many years after coming back from the field and trusting the Lord to take those walls down, and where I could see that the friendship and the relationships with people, even though there will be hurt involved at some point when we do have to say goodbye, that the value of those friendships far outweighs the pain. And also those friendships can be instantly built with our connection in Christ. So that is something that was a progress of learning that, man, friendship doesn't have to be so long and arduous and trying to build, but right away having the same foundation of Christ really is incredible to see those relationships just instantly form. And I so love that. And that goes around the world of different cultures, different people, different locations. You can have that instant bond through Christ.
Brandt, we're just getting going here, but we're running out of time for this week. Friends, if you want to learn more about Ethnos, the work that Brandt and Lainey are doing, just go to Ethnos. Just Google Ethnos. If you're in the U.S., you'll find the U.S. office there, Ethnos Canada. Brandt, we're going to keep on recording here. And friends, join us again next week here as we hear a little bit more about Brandt's story and what he's going to be doing up in the Arctic Circle. Grew up in Indonesia, now he's going to the Arctic Circle. I don't know about that.
Well, friend, we're at the end of our program today. You've been listening to Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. We really appreciate you joining us, and we would like to send you a special gift. Contact us to receive your free copy of Reset with Bonnie Sala, a 20-day devotional. Visit galcom.org and click Mission Compass. Fill in your contact info, and we'll mail your gift out right away. If you enjoyed today's program, you can listen again at galcom.org or on your favorite streaming platform. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share. There are many ways to partner with us. To find out more, visit our website at galcom.org. That's Galcom, spelled GALCOM.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I'm Ron Harris. Thanks for joining us today on Mission Compass, a radio ministry of Galcom International.